everyone, welcome to the Dear Teenage Girl podcast. It has been a while. It has been a long time. Since February, which is crazy. But I was away and you'll find out all about it in today's podcast episode. Yeah. So those of you who are new, hi, I'm Amy. I'm the host of Dear Teenage Girl. It's a podcast that I started in 2020. I just wanted a place for girls to listen to someone who's also going through really hard times and to be able to maybe relate or just to see how I'm clinging to Jesus and how you're not alone in the sense that I'm also going through things, other people are going through things. And it might not be the same thing, but we know what it's like to struggle in this world. But also, you're not alone because Jesus is with you all the time and He will help you through. And I know it's hard and it's easier said than done, but hopefully I can lead by example. But I'm also acknowledging the mistakes that I've made. Um, so hopefully you don't have to make those same mistakes. But yeah, so I started that in 2020 and I've kind of been doing it on and off. I find that whenever I start the podcast up again, then I experience a lot of trials. And so then I have to take some time off and then come back to it. So I used to post every Wednesday. I'm posting this episode on Wednesday. Because I've just really felt God calling me to make this podcast episode, but I'm not sure if I will keep posting after this episode. It's something that I'm really praying about and see what God will have. So keep checking to see if I'm posting on Wednesdays. Um, I would like to eventually, but we'll see if right now is the right time. But September is Suicide Prevention Month, and this year I had a suicide attempt, and so in today's episode, I just wanted to kind of get into my past year and what happened before the attempt, what happened during the attempt, what happened after the attempt. So I'm going to put a trigger warning here for two things. One, eating disorder. If you get triggered by eating disorder, please turn this video off immediately. And two, suicide. If you think you will be triggered by anything suicide related, please also click off this video. I will not be offended. I would rather have one less viewer than someone to be triggered by something that I said. Usually when I tackle these deeper subjects, like I have kind of talked about suicide before, and I have kind of talked about eating disorders before, I like to keep it kind of like more surfacely level because I don't want to trigger anyone, but in this case, I feel called by God to just be so real, raw, and honest with you guys about my past year. So I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm gonna get into it, and so that's why I would appreciate you guys to click off if you're gonna get triggered, because that's the last thing I want. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the video. So this video kind of starts in October 2nd to be exact. I'm just kidding. But yeah, if you guys have been listening to my podcast, you know that I was in a relationship for a year and then we broke up last October, which is crazy that it's gonna almost be a year that we've been broken up. That's absolutely insane. I feel like this year has not even felt like a year, it felt like a time warp. And so, yeah, to think that we're gonna be broken up, we're almost at the same point that like we've been in the relationship the same amount of time as we've broken up is crazy to me because when we were in the relationship it felt very long. Um, but yeah, so anyway, I just want to talk about that because that was something that happened in my life. And the relationship, it wasn't that he was a bad person. And I try to protect him a lot. Um, to the point where I don't really tell people what happened in the relationship. But what I will say is that it was a really bad relationship. And it's not that he was bad. It's not that I was bad. We both made mistakes. And this isn't me blaming him. But it wasn't a good relationship. It was very toxic. We shouldn't have been in a relationship. And I'm glad that, um, I mean, I really liked him as a person. And I I am happy for the good parts in a relationship, and I don't regret it, and I don't wish it never happened because there were good points. Do I wish that maybe we didn't get in a relationship and we could have still had a good friendship right now? I think, yeah, for sure. Like, the reason we got into the relationship is because I saw his heart and his and how he cared for people, and we became good friends because of that. Um, and I wish that we still could be good friends. Well, I wish that we could still be good friends if the relationship didn't happen. But because the relationship happened, we are no longer friends, and that's for the best. Um, but yeah, the relationship caused a lot of stress on me. And what used to be something that made me like super happy and giddy to talk about and like I'm so in love became something where people would step aside and be like, is there something going on in your relationship again? Like, because I become a completely different person. Like, I would just shut down, and like people like just by like walking by could tell that like I was going through and I was in another argument or something was happening because of just this new demeanor. And so um in that happening, I had to make the hardest decision of my life, but also the best decision I've ever made. And I had to end the relationship. And relationships endings are really hard. And I think that I didn't expect to end the relationship when I did, but in ending the relationship, I'd already kind of been checked out from the relationship for like if we ended in October since July. So it was like it was a long time coming. So I had already grieved a lot of the relationship. Um, but when it happened, it was kind of unexpected. So it hit me really hard for a good couple weeks. And in that relationship ending, I felt so much hurt. And I had lost my best friend. I had lost the love of my life. I had um, lost the person that I went to about everything. I lost the person that was the only person that could calm me when I was not like doing well mentally. Um, but looking back, I also see how that wasn't good, that he was the first person that I would go to about everything, or that he was the only person that um I don't know, just got me to like whenever I was going through something hard that would comfort me. Um Looking back, I see that that should have been God and that should have been Jesus. And so that's something that I learned right then and there, the hard way. But it's something that I continued learning throughout the year, which we'll get into a little bit later. But yeah, the relationship ending, I felt so much hurt and so much pain. I don't do well when people leave, um, because it brings me back to an event that happened when I was a baby. And so it is really hard when people leave your life. And so I was just feeling this immense pain that no amount of preparation from July to October could kind of like help me with. And so I went to the only coping mechanism that I knew worked to numb pain, and I said hello to my good old friend Ed. And so for those of you who don't know, Ed um, is what eating disorder patients call their eating disorder. Some might call it Anna. I call mine Ed. Um, it's not about Ed Sheeran. It's just because like eating disorder, ED, Ed. So if I refer to Ed, that's kind of what I'm talking about. So yeah, I said hello to my good old friend Ed, and asked him to help me numb all of the pain that I was going through. And he said, "Of course, but it will cost you." Um, so the second we broke up, I completely lost my appetite for months, and I stopped eating, and in doing so, my seizures got worse, and I was in and out of the hospital. I'd be there almost like every other week. The ambulance was constantly called on me. Um, I wasn't able to pay attention in class because I hadn't been eating. I would have an episode almost every class where I had to leave. So it's like I was trying to be strong and I was trying to be okay and I was trying to be like, how can this man have an effect on me? Or it's not even the man. Like, how can this breakup affect me so much? Like, I knew that breakups would be hard, but I didn't think that they would be this hard. And I just, I guess, spiraled in the sense that not like I went manic or anything, but I just, like, I had to take naps after like anything that I did, any social event, because I was tired because all that I was eating a day was a um, protein shake, if that. And I was just so mad that the relationship had to end because it was someone that I did love a lot. Um, and I started to get over that, and I was starting to do better, and I started making some really good friends who were there and who helped me through the breakup and who had also just recently been in breakups, and so we were able to kind of be there for each other, and they were able to give me some good advice. And so um in November I was starting to do better. I was um not eating wise, but like heartbreak wise, I was um distracting myself with friends and with school and keeping busy. And um then another friendship entered my life, and I feel like that friendship really should not have happened. But I mean, the friendship should have happened, but it kind of became a more of a friendship. And I mean, he's an amazing guy. Like, I have nothing bad to say about him. Um, but I was at a really low time in my life, and I liked the attention that I was getting, and I didn't think it was a rebound. I genuinely thought that I liked him. And I started hanging out with this person, and it was like started on group settings, yeah, but then it became like one-on-one. And this person we'll call Steve genuinely like wanted to know things about me. And I was like, what? Or like he'd want to have deep, meaningful conversations. And I was like, what is a deep, meaningful conversation? I've never had that before in like a relationship. And he wanted to know how my relationship with God was. And he would point me to God. And I was like, God, thank you. Like this is what I need. I need a man that will point me to God, a man um that loves you. And I didn't have that before. And I was dating a Christian boy, but not a godly man. And that's not anything bad about it. He'll admit that too. Um, but then I saw this godly man, and I was like, oh, okay. And so yeah, we started hanging out a little bit more, and I started to actually open up to him in ways that I've never opened up with anyone before, which is crazy because I've only known him for a short period of time. And he felt safe. And and yeah, I was having a great time. And then at the end of November, I got a wonderful call from my brother telling me that he had been diagnosed with sarcoma. Um, which when you hear the word cancer, your mind goes to the worst. You're like he has cancer, like that's horrible. And that kind of just like made me like be like, whoa, another wave is coming. Like, I just got over this breakup wave. Like, God, like, I don't, another wave, I don't know. Like, the breakup was hard. Now eating's hard, and um, my seizures are happening daily and multiple times a day. And then finding out my brother has cancer, I'm like, God, I don't want to have to see my brother be sick. Like I don't want that for him. Like I would much rather take it on myself instead of seeing my little baby brother have this. And so that was another kind of really hard thing that happened. But I was like, you know what, God, like you got this. Like I had two aunts that had cancer, and both of them were able to beat cancer. And so I was like, it will be another story like that. Like that's good. And so I had that in the back of my mind, but I wasn't thinking about it too much because I was so focused on like school and this relationship that was forming. And so then in December, the relationship became official. And a few days after that relationship became official, my aunt passed away from cancer, which when your brother was just diagnosed with cancer is really, really hard. And when it's a family member too, like that's so hard. And I loved my aunt so much, and I didn't know her too well though. Like she didn't really come visit the family. It was on my dad's side, but I think just knowing that my cousins who are my age and younger are gonna be growing up without a mom was really hard for me. I'm like, God, like what is going on? And um I was like, wow, all of these waves are just hitting me at once. Like I'm getting pulled under. Um, a couple days after that, I got the news that because I've been having so many seizures, were not able. Oh, at the school that I was at, they were not able to accommodate me, and they asked that I leave and take a semester off. Um, and when you have health problems, if you are chronically ill or if you have seizures, in the back of your mind, you always feel like a burden. And I'm someone that I never wanted my seizures to get away in of my life, so I would go out and I would do things and I wouldn't let my seizures stop me. But on the back of your mind, you're always scared, like, am I too much for these people? Are they wishing I was not here? Would they have more fun without me? Am I bothering them that they have to take care of me? And so that's all like going on in the back of your mind. And when all of this is kind of confirmed, um, and you're asked to leave, it's like that cuts deep and it hurts a lot. And I was very gracious about it. And I was like, okay, like we got this. We'll go back next year, whatever, take a semester off, like maybe I'll do supply teaching again, like it'll help me with money. But the thought of going back to my old town, my hometown, Hickville, was terrifying because I know how depressed I would get when I didn't have friends there. Like I know how hard it is to be living in my small town, hometown. But I was like, okay. And so my dad's like, okay, we're gonna fight. We're gonna say like, no, like you need to get the resources. Like this isn't fair. And I was like, yes, Dad. Like I wanna stay there. And then my mom turns to my dad, and my mom goes, no, we're not fighting this. She should not be at school right now. She's like, she's not eating anything, and she's getting really sick, and she needs to go to an inpatient program. And I was like, hold up. Oh, wait, no. And then my dad switched up so fast. And I mean, now I'm happy that he did. But I was like for the longest time, I was so mad at him and blamed him. But I was like, how can you switch up so fast? Like you were just ready to fight for me. Like what is this? Why did you stop fighting for me? Why do I have to go to this inpatient program? Like it's not that bad. Like it's fine. Like I'll be fine. And I wasn't fine. Basically, I like to give this analogy for myself, and hopefully maybe it helps you guys understand what an eating disorder is like. But sorry, basically you're in this car. maybe it's a minivan, whatever. We'll pretend it's my van that I named Noreen. And you're driving your car, going around, minding your own business. And this guy is standing at the side of the road with the thumb up, and you're like, I'll be a nice person. I'll let him in. And this guy, his name is Ed. And he sits beside you in the passenger seat, and he love bombs you. And you're like, wow, this is an amazing guy. Like, he understands me. He understands all of these judgments that I make about myself in the back of my head. He gets that. And he goes, I have a solution for you. And you're like, oh. He's like, let's start working out a bit. I'm like, okay, I'll listen. Yeah, let's start working out. Like, he's like, you could lose a few pounds. I think that that would be best for you. And you see how this and this and this happened in your childhood. Um, you see how you had more friends when you were skinnier, and when you got bigger, you didn't have any friends. It's like, you need to be skinnier so you can make no more friends. You notice that you don't have friends right now. Lose some weight. You notice how you just lost your boyfriend. Well, he doesn't like you because you gained weight. So you need to lose weight. And so he'll say things like that. And you'll be like, okay. And he'll be like, it's just 5 pounds. And you'll be like, okay. And then you get to that 5 pounds. You're like, what about 5 more pounds? And you're like, okay, that's reasonable. 5 pounds. Like I just did that. I can keep going. And you're like, it will stop the next time. And it never does. And so you're sitting in this car and finally you kind of realize what's going on and you're like, this isn't healthy. I'm miserable. I am sleeping all the time. I'm losing hair. I can't keep standing. Like I can't walk up my stairs. And so the Amy part of your brain who is driving and minding her own business is like, no, let's not do this. And Ed's like, shut up. And so he puts his hand on the wheel and starts driving. And once he gets one hand on the wheel, he gets another. And then you're in the passenger seat. And then you move back. And then you move back. And then you move back in the trunk. By January, I was in that trunk. If you looked in my eyes, you would not see Amy at all. I was unrecognizable. I was not a great person. I was a horrible person. And when I found out I was going to be going to an inpatient program, I was like, this is not fair for my boyfriend at the time. So I ended that relationship. Looking back, I also realized that when all of this was happening, who was the first person I was going to? Was it God that I said I would start doing ever since I broke up with first boy? No, it was second boy that I started going to, and he kind of became my person. And I was like, well, God, like he's making me closer with you, but he's like, well, yeah, because you're going to him first, and then he's pointing you to me. Because I was like, yeah, God, like he's pointing me to you, and he's like, yeah, but start going to me first. And I was like, okay. So through those two relationships, I don't know if that kind of got lost in translation, but that's kind of what God had been teaching me a lot this year was that I need to stop relying on people. I need to stop clinging on to people. I need to stop going to people first, and I need to start going to him first. And I keep learning that, don't worry. But anyway, I ended that relationship because I was not myself. Like Ed, who was now driving, didn't want another person to be worried about her, didn't want another person finding out about him because he knew that most people don't approve of him. And I wanted to get a job, but I spent every day all day laying on my bed because I could not move. The only time that I left my house was on Friday for my weekly doctor's appointments and some Sundays for church. And I had to get an ECG every single Friday and blood pressure, and I had to get blood work every single Friday because my heart was days away from just failing. And that was really hard, knowing that you are dying, knowing that you're losing your hair, you don't have energy, Amy's gone. I was a raging mad person as well. Like, I would just pick fights with anyone and everyone, especially around mealtime, so that I could get out of meals. I smashed more plates than I have ever smashed before, and I was a horrible person to be around, to the point where I had a family member come up to me and say, "Why did you have to come home? You were tearing our family apart. It would have been better without you here." And when someone you love says that to you, someone in your family says that to you, it's like, these are the people that have to love me. These are the people that don't get that choice. They're the ones that got stuck with me. And when they don't even want you to be around, you would think that Amy would kick back in and be like, "No, I'm gonna start eating again so I'm not this raging mad person that my whole family hates." But Amy was locked in the trunk that she could not get out, and I was happily driving that car, and happily driving that car right off the road. Because he didn't care about Amy. At first it sounded like he did, but ultimately he wants Amy to die. And so January, I was an unrecognizable person. I was moody, I was horrible, and I was just so low. People wouldn't come and talk to me and my family because they never knew what they were going to get. I didn't have any friends, I didn't have any community. My highlight of the week honestly was my doctor's appointment so that I could see my nurse. But I would go to the doctor every week bawling my eyes out, being like, "I need help. I can't do this anymore. I can't live anymore. I I just begging for a better life, begging for anything." And so they had signed me up for an inpatient program, and I found out that I got accepted, but I was still waiting to get in. And it's hard because when Ed is driving, he's very competitive, and he's like, if I'm not in a hospital with a breathing tube or a feeding tube, then I'm not winning. And so each week I'm like, Amy wasn't like this, but I was like, I hope I'm sick enough. I hope I'm sick enough that I'm in the hospital. I hope I'm sick enough for people to take me seriously. I hope I'm sick enough for yada yada yada. And that was a horrible mindset because then I just kept eating less and less and working out more and more. And it was a horrible cycle that I honestly don't think I could do anymore. Like, I don't know what well, Ed possessed me, but by the time it got to February, when I realized that I'm not getting in a hospital, when I say I guess I mean Ed. When Ed realized that he's not getting me into that hospital, and that my doctor and nurse is fighting so hard for Amy to come back and get out of that trunk, he's like, if people aren't gonna take me seriously, then I'm gonna get you to end your life, basically. And so um, I had been very, very suicidal for that whole month. And I have been letting my doctors know each week, but they weren't really taking it seriously. Um, and they're like, "Oh, do you have a plan?" And I was like, "Yes." And I would tell them my plan. And they were like, "Oh, just don't." And I was like, "Okay." And February 10th was my sister's birthday. I will never forgive myself for the person I was. And I will never forgive myself for doing this on my sister's birthday. But I had gotten in an argument with my sister, and I don't blame her at all. And I don't want her to blame herself ever. But that was the last straw. That was the last thing Ed needed. And it wasn't her. But I got down to my room I found all the extra pills I had and I laid them out on my bed. And I turned to God and I said, God, I'm so low right now. I don't know, like Ed hates God and wants nothing to do with God, but Amy loves God, and Amy in that moment had enough strength to be like, God, please, I'm so low, I'm so lonely, I have no one. I don't have a boyfriend anymore. The person that I loved the most in the world is gone. My friends who I love the most in the world are gone. My family, I mean, they said that they wish that I wasn't even there. And my mom is crying every day because of me, because I'm not eating. And she's begging on her hands and knees for me to eat, but I can't do it. I don't want her to go through that pain and hurt every single day. I don't want to take my family away from my brother who needs support while he's going through chemo, who needs them while he's going through something way worse than what I'm going through. And I was honestly convinced that the people in my family didn't even love me, and that if I were to kill myself, they wouldn't care a bit. They might cry, but that after that week, after the funeral, that they'd be like, thank goodness she is not a burden to us anymore. Thank goodness we don't have to look over our shoulder to see if she's seizing. Thank goodness we don't have to beg this girl to eat. Thank goodness we don't have this girl tearing apart our family. I said, God, I have no one. But if you send someone in that door, anyone, they don't have to say anything, but if you send someone in that door, I know that someone here cares for me. And I waited, and no one came in that door. I'd always felt in my life that God had called me for something more, for something great, more than just like regular life. Like I feel, and I've always had a passion in me that God has something great planned for my life. And so part of me didn't want to die because I didn't want to miss out on that good, because all I had been experiencing since October was trials and tribulations and hard times. And I wanted him to get the glory in all that instead of just me dying and me being in glory. So I was like, okay, God, one more thing. I'll call my aunt. Like, this is who I call in crisis. And I'll just talk her and she'll talk me out of this. And she didn't pick up, and later I found out that she was changing the kitty litter. And I was like, God, I don't know what to do, so I'm gonna call my cousin who is in the medical field and she can tell me what to do. And she was at the gym, so she wasn't able to pick up. And I was like, last thing, I'm calling a crisis helpline. And they never picked up. So I was like, I guess this is it. And in that moment I played God. And I called the ambulance on myself. And I got picked up by the ambulance and taken to the hospital. And I was so mad that it didn't work. And so I went to a family friend's house afterwards, and then I finally went home. And when I was in the car with my mom, I was like, Mom, I don't understand. I don't understand why God didn't send someone in here for me. Does he not care about me? Does he not want me to live? Is it better off if I die? Because then I should do it again. I should try harder this time because God obviously doesn't care if I live or if I die. Because He didn't send anyone in on me. And He didn't have my aunt pick up the phone, and He didn't have my cousin pick up the phone, and He didn't have the crisis line pick up the phone. And my mom turned to me and she said, "But you did. You picked up the phone and called 911. And in that, the only reason you were able to do that is because God gave you that strength. You didn't need me to come in the room. You didn't need your aunt. You didn't need a crisis helpline. You needed God. And yes, as humans, we do need people. God calls us into fellowship. He made us for relationships. And so I'm not saying that, like, if you go to people, you're a sinner. But what I am saying is that who's the first person that you go to about everything? If it's a certain person, I don't know, I would just suggest start going to God and try doing that, and I hope that you don't lose relationships over not going to God first like I did, because that was really hard and really painful and still affects me to this day. But in the moment, I realized that God was the only person that I needed, and I hate that I found it out in the way that I did. Um, I still struggle a lot with suicidal thoughts. I have really bad urges, and so I'm not trusted with meds. Like, I'm at school and my aunt and uncle have my medication at their house, and I fill up like a weekly kind of thing. And in those times I have suicidal urges, I had a 9 out of 10 one the other day. And everything in me, like, I would go to God first. And I'm not saying that if you have suicidal urges, you're not going to God enough. That's not what I'm saying, because that's not helpful and that's not true. You're still going to struggle with anxiety even though you have a relationship with God. You're still going to struggle with depression. You're still going to struggle with suicidal thoughts because sin's in our world, and that is what's going to happen. And so I'm not trying to say you're not a good enough Christian, because I've heard that, and it sucks, because I'm like, I feel like I am a good Christian in the sense that, like, it's only because I'm saved by Jesus, but it's like I read my Bible, I go to church, I blah 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 blah. I have a podcast, like, I do all of these things, but I still struggle with it, and it doesn't mean that I'm any less of a Christian because I struggle with it. But what I am saying is that I was just taught to that I need to go to God, and so I will go to God. And I still have prevention things, as in I'm not trusted with pills. I'm not allowed to be alone for long periods of time. It's actually like I'm literally 20 years old, and like I'm being babysat all the time. But it's so that I'm still here, I'm still alive. And but yeah, just for like suicide prevention, like, just rely on God and put those things in place that you need to, like hiding your pills, like whatever your method is. And for those of you that have never struggled with suicide, someone you know has, reach out to people, please. Something that I do is that when I'm feeling really, really low, I reach out to all of my family and friends, and not like I need help. I'll be like, hey, how are you? Because I wish that people would say that to me. I wish that people would reach out to me. I wish that, like my love language is words of affirmation, and I wish that I got that more, because otherwise my brain tells me that people don't love me. And so it's like that's something that I want, and that's something that I need, and who knows who else needs that and wants that. And so I give it out to them when I'm needing it most. Um so if you got a random text being like I love you or I miss you, chances are I'm very suicidal at that moment. But yeah, just please reach out to people. Please let them know that they're loved. Please never let them feel like a burden, and please never tell them that your life would be better without them, whether or not you feel that way or you're saying it out of anger, because you can never take those words back. So even if you are angry, please take a few seconds before you say anything like that, because you never know how that could affect someone. But that was my attempt to end my life. And a few weeks after that, on March 5th, I got into an inpatient program, and it was horrible. Oh, it was so horrible. I mean, the 16 weeks before getting into the inpatient program was the worst 16 weeks of my life. These 16 weeks were definitely the second worst 16 weeks of my life. It was, they're like, let's put everyone with the same mental disorder that's very competitive, and let's have them all eat in a circle, and let's have them um, learn each other's fear foods, so you feel like those have to be your fear foods now too. And let's let them learn each other's tricks on how to hide food. Um, but I needed to go there, and so looking back, I'm like, you know what? It sucked that I got kicked out of Tyndale. But if I didn't, I wouldn't have been able to go to the inpatient program. And if I didn't go to the inpatient program, I would not be here today. And so that inpatient program did not help me too much, but it did help me refeed, and it did help Amy get unlocked from the trunk and get into the driver's seat again. And during the summer, Amy was driving, and Ed had one wheel or one hand on the steering wheel. I was surviving. I was doing well. I had to be supervised a lot. I had to be forced to eat a lot. I had to start like a sticker chart, and like if I have so many stickers, I get a prize to kind of motivate me to eat. Um, and then the last week of summer, I relapsed hard. I hadn't been that bad since January. Like if I was around food, I would black out and just start like walking, and I would like come to and be like, what the heck just happened? Because that week I was around someone who made me feel like I needed to have an eating disorder, who made me feel like um, I wasn't good enough for them, and who honestly made me hate myself. And so being around that person all week was really hard, and it brought me right back to like the depth of my eating disorder. And like, this person can't see me eat. And so when we're at camp and we're in a dining hall together and that person's table is right beside yours, I would just get up and leave and just like pace back and forth, because my brain's like, they can't see me eating, or they're gonna think that I'm horrible and unworthy and like ugly and all that kind of stuff, which is not true at all. And so that week happened, and my doctors found out about it, and the doctors found out that I broke an agreement that I had made with them, and they decided that they wanted to pull the plug on me going to university this year, which really sucked because I'm everyone else my age is in third year. I'm still in first year, and I want to be successful in life, and I want to be a teacher. So I have 6 years of school, so that means I won't be done till I'm 26, and I've just always dreamed of getting married young and having kids young. And of course it's in God's timing and it's God's plan, and I um shouldn't try and write my own story, but it's like, oh, now I can't have kids. Oh, I can't even get married till I'm 26, and then like have kids when I'm 28. Like I wanted to get like married soon and have kids like soon. Um and so then finding out that like my plans might have to be delayed an extra year, and so I won't finish school till I'm 27 was really, really hard for me. And so I had a long chat with my family the night before move-in day. And we decided that I wasn't going to go to school this year and it would be a good thing. And I was going to go to an inpatient program in New Hampshire where I wasn't going to be allowed my phone for a whole year. Um, but we thought, okay, this is best. And then I woke up in the morning and all of a sudden I just felt like I'm supposed to go to school. Like that's where I'm supposed to be. And yeah, I'm terrified of having a repeat of last year's school because it was honestly so horrible, so traumatic. Like just being like in the ambulance all the time, like being having like seizures multiple times a day at school, and it's really hard. Um, and so yeah, I was terrified of this being a repeat of last year, but I was like, you know what? I have different resources. Like I have a team. I have a therapist I see weekly. I have a dietitian I see bi-weekly. I have a doctor that I see weekly. Like there are supports here. They have like 24-hour like therapy or not everyday like therapy, like walk-in. That's what I was looking for. And if I'm ever in crisis, so I was like, okay, I don't know, I just felt at peace and I was reading through the Bible and I was reading where Jesus sends his disciples out and he says, don't bring like shoes with you, don't bring clothes, don't bring food, like just go and I will provide that for you. And so yeah, God's talking about physical things here, or Jesus was talking about physical things there, but he can also do that with like mental things. Like I do have a team, but I'm taking that step of faith and I'm coming to school. And I know that God will provide me with the strength to fight Ed and to kill Ed. And he did. Because all of a sudden, when I decided I was coming to school, there was a switch in my brain that I had never had before. Like, I've been struggling with anorexia since 2020. I've been struggling with binge eating disorder since I was in seventh grade. So I've had an eating disorder since seventh grade. And I'm so thankful to God because I've gone a month seizure free. Um, and I have gone a couple weeks ed free. Like, seriously, like, I've had food freedom I've never had before. And I've started going to God about everything. And it's helped me so much. And so, what I do is every morning, first thing I do before I check my phone is I'm kneeling on my hands and knees. Not that you have to pray this way, but this is what I've decided. And I am praying that God heal me from my seizures, that He heals me from Ed. I am praying on every single piece of the armor of God. I'm praying on the fruit of the Spirit. And I do that every night before I go to bed. And I don't know. Maybe Ed will come back. Maybe my seizures will come back. But I know that I serve the God who heals, the God who loves, and the God who provides. And right now, He's provided me with the healing that I need. And it is crazy being at school and being able to study for longer than like 10 minutes at a time. It is crazy not having to take 500 naps a day. It is crazy being able to walk around campus because it's a pretty big campus. Um, and that's all because of God. And I'm so, so thankful to Him. And I've had a really hard year, but God has taught me through that. He's taught me that His plan is better than my own. He's taught me that I need to start relying on Him. He's taught me that He provides when we need it. And it's been a really, really hard year. But I hope that even maybe if you don't struggle with an eating disorder, maybe you struggle with something and this you can relate to this. I hope that if you know someone that you think you can relate to this, like, please share the podcast. Like, I'm not really big on like being like share, like, subscribe, blah 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 blah. But like, I want this episode to go where God would have it go. And I want God to be so glorified through this because I'm standing here alive. That is not of my own strength. I'm standing here a healthy weight. That is not of my own strength. I'm standing here having food freedoms I've never had. That is not of my own strength. I'm standing here being a month seizure free. That is not of my own strength. It is all because of God. And I want you to turn to God with whatever you're going through. And know that you're not alone. And know that God loves you and that God is here for you. And yeah, so now I'm at school and I am thriving. This summer, I was surviving. Before that, I don't know what the heck I was doing, but it was barely even living. But now I'm thriving, and I'm hoping to be a light here. Um, but yeah, please reach out on my Instagram, Dear Teenage Girl. Please, if you know that you struggle with suicidal thoughts, please make a plan. Please write out crisis helplines to call. Please, like, you can print off these pages online. It's like a prevention plan. Please call, like, write out helplines, write out the number of your hospital, write out the address, write who you would call, like, even if you're not calling 911, you don't think it's that bad, write out names of people that would take you to the hospital or people that would help you calm down. Get rid of whatever method you would use. And I know it's easier said than done. I know when you're in the thick of things, like my doctor told me multiple times, get rid of your pills. But I didn't because in the back of my mind, I still wanted an out. And even now, like, I took my pills with me to school and my therapist said, Amy, get those out of your room. And I was like, I cannot. Because I need to be able to know that I have an out when things get too hard. But the strength of God helped me to get rid of those pills, and the strength of God can help you too. So have people that write out numbers already. Make a plan. If I get to this point, what am I doing? If I get to this point, what am I doing? If I get to this point, what am I doing? And whether or not you're struggling, or whether or not you know someone who's struggling, or you don't know someone who's struggling, please, please, please reach out to your friends and family members at different time. It doesn't have to be all the time, but like it can just be like, I love you, or hey, thinking about you, or miss you, or how are you doing? Just any point of reaching out. Pray for them. Ask them if they have any prayer requests. Like, help fix the problem. And it's like, I have I have been so low and I've got a text from a friend that I haven't heard from in days, and just being like, I love you, and I'm like, wow, thank you God, like I really needed that. But then it's like, okay, 20 minutes later, like I've forgotten all about it and I'm like, no one loves me, no one cares about me. So I'm not gonna say that like it's gonna heal you if you get a text or if you send a text. But what I do know is you never know what moment someone's in. If God, especially if God is tugging at your heart to reach out to someone, please reach out to someone because you never know what amazing things you can do because God has told you to do something. Always be listening to God. If He tells you to reach out, please reach out because you never know what moment someone's in it. Maybe they're at their lowest and they get a call, and maybe it doesn't heal them that they know that someone loves them, but maybe it stops them from doing something in the moment, and then they can go and get help. But yeah, just know that you are known and you are loved and you are chosen by God. You are loved by me, and write out write out what you're thankful for and the people that are there for you. And like, I don't know, that's something that helped me, is like The other day I had a doctor's appointment that I knew was going to be triggering, and I didn't want Ed to come back in that conversation. So I wrote out all of the things that I'm thankful for in recovery. I'm thankful for my hair not falling out so much. I'm thankful for my nails being strong. I'm thankful for being able to walk places. I'm thankful for not being freezing cold all the time. I'm thankful for um having my spark back. I'm thankful for being able to laugh again. I'm thankful for um, being able to appreciate good tasting food, and just like all these things. And there's so much more that like you lose when you have an eating disorder. But like whether or not you're dealing with depression, anxiety, um, any mental illness, just like write out the things that you're thankful for. And again, I'm not saying that it's going to heal you, but maybe in a really low time, you can look back at it and remember. Um, so that's all that I have for today's episode. It was a bit of a longer one, but it was one that I felt called to do and post, especially in September for Suicide Prevention Month. Keep looking back on Wednesday, see if I'm posting. I'm not quite sure. I am praying about that a lot still, but we'll see. And yeah, just comment like if you have any requests for topics that we can go into. Um, but yeah, you are loved. So loved. Have a great week.